I mean, really, at the end of the day, how many times do you want to do this trial? Because when you start plucking away at the rights of an individual in this situation, you are at the same time planting those seeds for another trial.
So you believe, and I understand you are not divulging your source.
And I think he came out here with an idea and a notion.
I do know that Judge had entered a non-dissemination order. That still remains in place. And unless I, for some reason, remove that order, it will stay in place. And I expect it to be religiously adhered to by all parties, counsel, victims, counsel for the victims. And I will not tolerate violations of that.
You are bringing up a lot of evidentiary implications with what you just said.
There is a ton to unpack in this most recent interview with Nancy Grace and Steve Goncalves. We have new evidence, new theories, and a lot to go over. So welcome to The Point. Let's get to it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Everything said here is alleged. Please do your own research and form your own opinion, and let me know that opinion because this is an open discussion channel. And I try to be fair here, so if more fair coverage in this story and others is something you're missing, subscribe to this channel and hit that like button down below. Because there are some things Steve Goncalves said in this Nancy Grace interview that I agree with. So let's dive in with Nancy Grace asking Steve Goncalves how he feels when other cases start making the headlines.
Yeah. It's part of the reason why we're fighting is to make sure that my daughter's case is going to get the right people and the right attention and then, the right resolution. So you think it's a guarantee in America, but I think those times have changed. I think you really have to come up and you have to say something and you have to get people involved. And I've heard that from other people who have cases that were never solved. So I knew with my child, there wasn't anything I wouldn't have done to make sure that I was talking and getting that information out and getting people's attention.
Let's be honest here, the sad reality is he's right. But it's also the cause of a lot of these issues he's saying he has with this case. We know that small town USA has a ton of unsolved cases. And it's sad that people have to beat the war drum just to get an investigation moving. In a lot of scenarios, you have to get on national TV and basically beg for resources so you can get your loved one justice. But getting a case national attention and keeping that case in the headlines so you can get the justice you desire comes with a lot of issues. We'll get to later with some of his statements. But what's not a guarantee here? That's a very interesting statement to make. When in the past he seemed so certain Bryan Kohberger's the guy. He said in the past law enforcement told him to calm down, that this is the person that did that. They have their man. And if he did it, he did it. It will be proven in court and he will more than likely be charged. And if he didn't do it, then more than likely he will be found not guilty in a court of law. It's as simple as that. All the public statements in the world can't make an innocent man guilty based off the evidence, right? Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You can let me know down below. And this is just my own unprofessional opinion. But during this interview, it seems like he's saying at times, guilty or not, he wants this conviction. That is speculation, of course, and absolutely not justice if true. That's vengeance, and it has no place in our judicial system. Because all we want here on this channel is justice for those 4 individuals who didn't deserve to go through what they went through. And we only get justice through a fair and legitimate trial with an unbiased jury. But since the mainstream stalking narrative has now been proven false, they moved to the hunting talking point, and I expect that talking point to really start to gain traction. And during that conversation, Steve said this.
I'm trying to be careful how I describe some of the things that is out there, but yeah, this is a criminologist. This is somebody who spent, probably a century studying law and getting the ins and outs. This person knows there cannot be a direct connection, an easy direct connection. That's how everyone gets caught. So you got to reverse engineer it back to what he was doing and the steps he was taking. I think this will go all the way back to his Pennsylvania home. In his actual room, you're going to find out that he planned this that actual location, and he left Pennsylvania with a thought and a motivation to go someone.
So he has to be careful here. Keep in mind this new judge did mention that gag order is in place and it does pertain to the victims. So is this possibly some sort of gray area violation? Is he alluding to new evidence that has been sealed? But let's run with this new theory, okay? Yes, Bryan Kohberger is a criminology student, so he would know the do's and don'ts of committing a crime, with his centuries of studying the subject. So all the way back in Pennsylvania, before he ever went to Washington, he meticulously planned this particular attack. Short of a written journal or some type of blog, how do you prove this beyond a reasonable doubt? Think about that for a second. The vast majority of his search history can easily be explained away because of his major. As a criminology student, wouldn't by default his search history include searches on how to plan an attack, how to remove DNA from a crime scene, or how to leave little DNA behind, how to avoid or evade detection? Just in my short time of making videos, my search history would show the same information. Does that make me a suspect? And he goes on to mention stuff about BK's troubled past, and how his troubled past along with this information will prove some type of meticulous planning. But if he planned this, if he had knowledge and understanding of what to do and what not to do, then why would he leave his sheath behind? Why would he even bring it in? Or not wear it on some type of belt? Why would he pick a home surrounded by cameras? Why would he take his own car? And why would he repeatedly take his cell phone with him while he was hunting these individuals? I mean, when you lay it out like that, he's either the worst PhD student in history, a very bad planner, or he didn't do it. I mean, a whole lot of these errors don't make sense, right, for somebody who is supposed to be so smart. Because these are huge oversights that he should have been aware of, if he's the individual that committed this crime. And these are some huge questions that a lot of us need answers to. I mean, a whole bunch of this simply doesn't make sense. For Steve to say he had some type of troubled past would then mean that at least somebody would make some sort of statement about that troubled past, beyond the party favor comments. And I'm not aware of any violence in his past. Not one interview from any of these people who claim to know him speak of him having some sort of violent tendency. I mean, we've heard the phrase that he's creepy. We've heard the phrase that he's socially awkward, and other statements similar to that. But we have some huge holes in this early planning theory that Steve Goncalves proposed on Nancy Grace, and I'm wondering if you see it too. But Nancy goes on in this interview to talk about the cell phone pings in the area, and we've touched on that in previous videos, and we've talked about who else lived in that area as well. So I'm not going over that again. Instead, I'm going to link Pavarotti's YouTube channel down in the description below. And after this video, go listen to some of the stuff he said, because his breakdowns are certainly interesting and they're definitely going to make you think about some things. But during that conversation about the phone, Steve said this in one of his replies.
So I think that in the end is what made them targets. Beauty, their smile, their laughter, the way they treated others.
And this is where we get some huge inconsistencies that we just don't have answers to right now, but we certainly need them. Keep all this in mind. At first it was they didn't have to go upstairs, which made a lot of us think, okay, Xana and Ethan were the target, which then led to a lot of speculation about Sigma Chi. But then if everybody remembers, I think it was on 48 Hours, they said in an interview that Maddie was the target, which was one of the statements that fueled this stalking narrative that was floating around until that was shot down in court. But now it's they were the target, which absolutely doesn't make sense because Kaylee Goncalves just happened to be there that night, according to them. If she was one of the targets and it happened that night, you've got to ask yourself who all knew she was coming into town on that particular day. And were those individuals interviewed? I mean, she was either a target or she wasn't. And I hate to phrase it like this because I know it's going to come across as callous. And that's not my intent. But she was either a target and someone knew she was coming or they were told, or she was just collateral damage. And once again, I'm sorry for phrasing it like that, but I don't know of a better way, and if you do, please let me know. But let's get to the double-edged sword comment I made earlier in the video.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we felt the need to get a lawyer, to make sure that everything was done by the book. And I questioned that everything was, 100% done on paper. Where were these rights coming from? Who was making the decisions to give him?
Allegedly, he needs to understand that when you get on national TV and make the type of push that family has been making in this particular case, it does bring attention, and attention's what they wanted. but that attention comes with certain stipulations. I'm as fair as I can be on this channel, and I'll admit to you all, Steve acknowledges Bryan Kohberger has the right to a fair trial when talking about his appearance, but he thinks this doesn't apply to the hearings. But in this type of situation, it absolutely does. The fact is, millions of people all across this country, and even more all across the world, are watching these hearings, or they're watching people like me and other content creators talk about these hearings. This level of attention that Bryan Kohberger's getting means that when they see him in orange, completely disheveled, it affects his right to a fair trial. There's just too many eyes on this case. And as simple as that, and I don't get why they don't understand it. I mean, really, at the end of the day, how many times do you want to do this trial? Because when you start plucking away at the rights of an individual in this situation, you are at the same time planting those seeds for another trial. But of course, maybe I'm wrong with this old take. Maybe you'll let me know down in the comments below. Y'all be safe now.